Art is sort of a summary of every civilization. Journey requires me to be displaced from one place to the other. It cannot be achieved by being comfortable in one space, in one place, in a closed bubble. My origin story has to do a lot with ink, the color black, and a lot of angst. I come from a very punk, metal, very, like, how to put it, unrefined background when it comes to art. Sometimes I'd go do a show, then I'll just vandalize certain things in and around. Very mischievous. For me, my duty is to make art, to express, and for that, if I need to go through whatever condition that I have to, I'll go through it. Just because you're born with a talent and in a certain way, and you're only practicing that without putting in the effort, without putting in the hard work, without being uncomfortable, you might miss out on a bigger calling. You need to be patient with all the movements, all your thoughts, and all the things that you're fighting for. If you're putting out something, if you're putting an art piece, if it's not polarizing enough, then maybe you're just not there yet.
Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of #Preach. We have with us today a creative alchemist, as I like to call him, a rebel soul who went on to win the Red Bull World Art Championship. He has since collaborated with a marquee list of brands such as Adidas, Porsche, Harper's, Amazon Prime, Dust of Gods, just so many in the list. But that was not the most exciting part of having Santanu Hazarika on the hot seat with me. From understanding the importance of building a personal brand on social media to conversations on existentialism, spirituality, mythology, scriptures, to understanding how to transcend and transmute trauma into things of beauty and impact and social responsibility. This is a conversation that was truly enlightening and enriching for me. I can't wait for you to meet Santanu Hazarika, who truly believes that art is an error and he is the glitch. Let's get right into the conversation. This episode is powered by Niposh. Welcome Santanu. As I was mentioning, we've been trying to make our paths meet since the past 2-3 years, and I'm so happy it's happening this way where I can have a conversation with you. And obviously, before when I prepped for this, I learned that a lot of the inspiration of how you started this came from comic books.
Correct.
We'll get into that, but for me, the question here is, what is then Santanu's origin story? Just walk me through your origins and what got you here.
First of all, thank you for having me here. It's really amazing to be here, and you have a beautiful office.
Oh, thank
This is
you.
so cool. Like, I like high ceilings and this natural lighting and everything. It's perfect.
Yeah,
So, starting with my origin story, I come from this city called Guwahati in Assam, and my origin story has to do a lot with ink, the color black, and a lot of how should I put it, angst, and a lot of heavy metal music.
Yeah.
So I was always into comic books. I was always into like animated stuff. Even now, like, my go-to thing on Netflix would be all the anime.
What are you watching right now?
Right now, I'm rewatching Doro He Doro and Chainsaw Man, because that's like my always go-to. And I especially because I really like the art style. Ever since I was a young kid, I always had a very strong inclination towards sketching and drawing, because I was not good in sports. I was not a very popular kid. I was kind of like a misfit. So I would say I am one of those emo misfit kids in the school sitting in the last bench and just scribbling stuff on their notebooks. And that's how I started off. I always used to make drawings. I used to copy comic book characters, and sometimes I would sell it off to my friends, and in order to get more money, save up and buy more comic books. So that was sort of my journey as a kid, and trying to fit in with my peers, trying to fit in and try to get validation in a way. And that's because that's the only thing I knew. And then fast forward, as I keep growing older, society happened, people happen, and they're like, oh, art is not something so lucrative. And where I'm from, there is there was no discussion around art and design. There was no dialogue around it. So I had to just figure out my own way, and there was a generalized notion that all artists are miserable.
Yeah.
You die hungry, and it's just a hobby basically.
Take me back to, so you're growing up and you're growing up in a place where there are so many insurgencies happening, and I think there was so much of the military personnel that was posted all over across. So what was that time like from a child's lens? How did you perceive that?
It'll be really wrong for me to see that there is so much beauty and banality when it comes to when you are a kid, when you are very, how to put it, you don't know the overarching concepts around death, around insurgencies, around political issues and stuff. Every time there was a bomb threat and something, will get a holiday. So I'll only be excited about not going to school and
Yeah.
spending the day with my friends and going out. But later on, when you realize that, okay, the grim reality is like people actually had to fight, people actually die, and like there is a lot more to just me being a child enjoying a holiday. So when that sets in, you sort of realize that there are so many other things at play.
So at what age did you start finally understanding and like piecing
Teenage,
it?
when I started, when
Teenage.
I grew a little older, when it was the ASFA rule, I think during that time,
Okay.
because of the Alpha insurgency. And strange, we were actually barred from doing a lot of normal things. Like every time we have Independence Day or Republic Day, we'll have a public holiday, so we're not allowed to celebrate it because there'd be a bomb threat, there'll be this, that, and even schools have been bombed. And it seemed so far, so distant as a kid because you don't realize a lot of things. But then you also later, when you are growing up, then you realize, okay, why have I turned out to be like this?
Yeah.
Go, like, why do I make these kind of choices? Where does my primary inspiration stem from? And the thing is, as you grow older, you understand more of the traumas and more of the situations that you were put through as a kid, and that gives you a whole different perspective. And I'm just lucky enough, or maybe I'm grateful enough, that I could channel most of it through my art.
Yeah.
And that is something that I'm learning right now.
Do you look at art also as activism?
Yeah, I feel like art is sort of a summary of every civilization. Art is something that you can use to summarize a particular situation, a particular history, or particular time period in any form of history or any form of civilization. So I feel like this is the perfect way, the cool way to sort of put a summary to a nice book called Humans. So, and every time period has its own distinctive style, has its own way of looking at things, and like starting from architecture to everything, the clothes and everything is influenced by the kind of socio-political and economic situations that we are surrounded by.
So do you look back at some of your initial work and then kind of reflect on, okay, this is probably what I was dealing with, or this is what my environment was like?
Yes, I do sometimes, but what happened is earlier in my career, when I first started off, my artworks were sort of very worldly in the sense that it was not very personal. It was more objective in nature. It has more to do with the external side of things and me not feeling a lot of things. Part of me right now is like going through therapy and all that stuff, and also I'm kind of dealing with a lot of things that were unresolved. So now I'm in a zone where I'm actually trying to reconfigure myself, realign myself with a lot of things that I've experienced before, and that is sort of affecting my art. Now, before it was a more externally. My art was affected by the external side of it. My
Right.
art would represent the physical and the surrounding side of it. Like maybe if I'm inspired by a book, if I'm making something which is around a certain environment or certain condition, around other people, other artists. But now it has become more emotionally driven. It has become more how to put it, introspective in its nature.
Yeah.
So I'm working on series which are mostly relying on ideas of happiness, ideas of sadness, ideas of traumas
And
and
just
demons.
growth and evolution, which is
Correct.
really, really painful,
Correct.
actually.
And change.
You know, you said in one of your interviews that art is the only thing that can be completely subjective and objective at the same time.
Correct.
I found that very interesting. I've always thought of art to be very subjective. So
Correct.
what is the objectivity in that?
My practice is a weird intersection of like art and design, because we have this age old idea of, okay, is everything that you make like every good design is not a good piece of artwork,
Right.
but every piece of artwork can be a good designed and thought
Design.
after art piece. So I kind of believe in that. So because I do a lot of design stuff, I do a lot of commission work for a lot of brands, a lot of clients, but I also do a lot of personal work. I do a lot of curated shows and exhibitions which are much more personal and more subjective in nature. So I try to design a lot of my artworks in a way that it can relate to a certain emotion. I mean, art needs to move you, right? Art needs to
Yeah.
sort of question things. Art needs to like move you, make you feel things. Or maybe there's a whole factor of relatability, right?
Yeah.
And that is an objective truth for me. If I can relate to something, if I can relate to a common emotion which 10 other people, maybe 10,000 more people can relate to, that's an objective form of emotion. That's an objective form of execution. And art actually achieves that.
Wow. Okay.
And that's why I feel like it's a good balance of both, because it's subjective to me, and how I the process is subjective to me, and how I approach my comfort with the medium, with the things that I put out, coming from a very personal space. And if someone who's completely different, born in a different circumstance, in a different age group, subject to different things, can relate to a certain side of
Aspect of it. Yeah.
aspect of it, and that's a beautiful subjective objective balance right there. So I
Wow.
think that's where I like to be at.
Yeah, that's very interesting of you to say. And a lot of people are like, okay, you must be so excited. Your brand is doing so well and stuff like that. But I'm like, I am, but I'm also very aware because often people compliment you to say everybody loves your work, and I'm like, but that's not the truth because I do know that a lot of people absolutely hate it. But I'm like, it is work that makes you take notice and makes you say have a strong opinion about it, and that's what I love to do. Because if somebody's like, okay, cool, it's nice, I would probably stop working because I'd be like, then there's no point on me. I don't know what I'm putting out in the world because it's like not doing anything good or bad, right? So I totally get that. Like, it has to, responsibility of artists is to put something out there that makes people feel something, anything. That is like a big set of emotions somebody can feel when they see art or interact with it. So, but I think this way of you putting it like subjective and objective is very interesting. I haven't thought of it like
I
that.
mean, it needs to be polarizing. If you're
Yeah.
putting out something, if you're putting an art piece, if it's not polarizing enough, then maybe you're just not there yet somewhere.
Wow.
I like the idea of polarizing to a certain extent, because art comes with its own shock value,
Yeah.
and it's I mean, it can be really peaceful or something. It also can be very disturbing. Both of them are fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay as long as you're polarizing the viewers. I think you're doing a good job at making art.
You also mentioned that you have been diagnosed with. I don't really like using the word diagnosed because I think I'm also ADHD. And you've also mentioned that you suffer from depression
Yeah,
and dyslexia and stuff like that. And I think, at least for me personally, it took me some time to kind of, and a lot of therapy work, like three
correct.
years of therapy. It helped me understand that ADHD actually equals to being neuroqueer. Like people who don't know how to live in the binaries of just everything, just existence on a whole, like just getting boxed into box A, box B,
Correct.
box C, box D, and that is ADHD. So for me, that was like really empowering to find out that I'm neuroqueer, I'm like neurodivergent.
Oh, correct.
But how was your experience of all of that when you did not have the vocab to understand it and you had to kind of process it in an environment, say doing engineering or like in a place like Chennai, so far away from home? How did you make space for all your neurodivergence?
It's a bit difficult to pinpoint this, because I'd have like waves of episodes, and it always be combinations of things. And I would say before it was different because I was young and there was a lot of distractions. And if you know how it is with ADHD, right?
Yeah.
You're always planning your exit move. You're always like, okay, then what next? After, like,
What
you can't
next?
go through the entirety of a process. Like,
Yeah.
even if you achieve 50% of something, you feel like dropping everything and moving on to the other one.
Exactly.
And and because of that, a lot of things suffers, like
Yeah.
starting from your personal life to your work and everything. I mean, it goes on, but I've just figured out a way to balance it and use it somehow. Like, and it's physically and mentally straining. Before, I thought maybe it's just because I'm not good at certain things. Maybe okay, I can't do engineering, I can't focus that well, I'm not understanding anything. I thought the fault was mine, like maybe I'm not just trying hard enough. But later I realized that like it's actually, I've been too hard on myself because I didn't have the vocabulary to understand or explain it to myself.
Yeah.
Like forget about explaining to other people.
Absolutely.
Right. So, but then over the course of time, I've sort of figured out my own ways to cope with it, deal with it, because now I know. Now I don't like fight myself to understand what's happening,
Right.
because I know, okay, this is the situation, this is the condition. I'll just have to go through it. I
Yeah.
can't fight it. I can't like look for other options. I can't figure out ways, because that gets you anxious,
Yeah.
and that makes it worse. So I just have learned to sort of give in and sort of go with it and then come out the other end.
So let's go back to your origin story. You are in Guwahati, where there's the world outside of you is very unpredictable. It's pretty chaotic. Um, Yet at the same time, I heard in your interviews that your mom has been a constant source of like support to
Correct.
your art and things like that. And I think there's so much beauty in that, like getting that at home. And then you go on to say that while the environment is so chaotic or where you're living, it's so unpredictable. Even in school, you felt like you were a misfit. Like,
Correct.
even though all your peers and you were going through something that was very different from probably the rest of India and like people like us who grew up in Bombay or New Bombay. Yet even within that circle, you felt like a misfit.
Correct.
But then you chose to go and do engineering in Chennai. Like, how did that happen?
I've always liked science, and like I said, there was no idea about art and design, so I was always told either to like become a doctor or an engineer, the usual stuff
Yeah.
basically, like the classic. You have to be this
Indian,
way,
yeah.
Indian mentality when it comes to careers and stuff. So I always liked science, so it was either science or it was medical. So I was like, okay, now I'm gonna take up science as a subject, but which I was very wrong, because engineering is not
Not
close to
science.
science at all. I should have taken like a bachelor of science or something like that. I would really want to do a PhD if I could right now in physics, but uh, I just
I
can't.
hope you do actually.
I do read up a lot of stuff on
Yeah.
science even now, like on like I hated math, but now I've realized that it was taught the wrong way. So
Man.
I could have, now I'm getting into calculus again, just to understand and study and things which are much more deeper than just numbers and alphabets. But I'm really grateful because I took up mechanical engineering, and that taught me a lot. That taught me discipline when it comes to making art and design, because we had this subject called machine drawing, which was really difficult. Really, really difficult. We had to make giant charts, spend hours, like nights, just working on one chart and making machine parts, engine parts. We had a really thick book of calculations where you have to scale down everything, figure out how big the nut's gonna be, the bolt's gonna be, and it's a mix of everything combined together. And that thing actually taught me discipline, that if you want to like really make something, create something, that you need to put in those hours. There's no shortcut to it.
Okay, you've done engineering, you've gone back, you've again done engineering. Then how did you decide to move to Bombay? And was that always a plan? Is that something that just happened? And what were the challenges in navigating? Like, I
Right.
mean, a city like Bombay is daunting for people who've grown up here, so I can't imagine what it was for you.
I was in Siberia as part of an art camp. Yeah, I
Wow.
was painting
How
some
did you
murals.
get there? I want to know that
Friends,
first. After failing many, many applications to colleges.
I had a street cred.
Ah.
I mean, I used to paint a lot of stuff. Like I became quite popular in the whole counterculture, subculture
So while you
space.
were still in Guwahati,
Yeah, people knew me
how
as an
did you
artist.
do that? Through
Through
social media?
not even through social media, maybe little bit, because back then I think it was not very huge. Social media has not blown up, but mostly through word of mouth, working with like bands and musicians, and basically just working.
Oh yeah, I used to make album art for
Yeah.
like free beers and
Yeah.
food.
Yeah, correct. So,
Yeah.
so I got a little reputation, guys, to go out and like tag streets and stuff, just make art wherever I could.
So then from there you got street cred because of the work that you did with
Yeah.
other artists. You
Yeah.
collaborated,
Yeah.
not always for money.
Yeah.
And then you reached Siberia.
It was actually after the Red Bull thing.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So by that time, because even after winning the Red Bull thing, didn't give me much. Like it did give me a starting point, but then it was not very big because nobody cares in
Right.
India. Who cares? What is Doodle Art? What is Red Bull and all? It was not that big back in that time. So even that, I have to come back, and I was in Guwahati for the longest time because I had to again. That's when my actual career and my struggle started, because that's when I shifted to art as a full-time thing with having no knowledge, no idea. I don't come from a like an art or an affluent family that
Of
I can
course.
just risk it and have that privilege to go do this. So I basically just took a chance, and I'm like, I'm gonna figure myself out. If I've gone this far, I can do it. There's no point. Like I can do it basically. So I started working with a bunch of local artists. I started doing a bunch of local gigs back home. I was working with Metropolis Asia, which is like one of the biggest art and music fest back in the day.
Right.
So it was kind of like a Biennale, but nobody knew the term Biennale back then. So it just made it like an art fair thing. It was music, art, and everything. It was beautiful, and it was like like a cross cultural thing. Then I used to do a lot of live painting, sketching, like installations and stuff with uh, groups like this. So that got me more attention because there was no one else doing this. And I was the only one, like, no torch bearers, nothing, no direction. Just had to figure my way out by trying basically.
Yeah.
So that way, it got the attention I sort of always wanted. And then when I came back in, because I traveled for that time, during that time, then I came back to Delhi, and I was like, I'm not going back home. Like I just had a little suitcase and I stayed back there. And I
In
was
Delhi.
in Delhi. Like, nope, I just need to change my space. I think there's nothing much that I can do. Like if I stay there, I'm gonna be the only one taking all of this thing ahead, and I'm just gonna be stuck there. And for people back home to understand, they would always look forward to someone. They look forward to a journey.
Yeah.
They will obviously be inspired by a journey, and journey requires me to be displaced from one place to the other. It cannot be achieved by being comfortable in one space and one place in a closed bubble. I need to show that journey. So that's why I decided to, like, okay, I'm gonna be in Delhi because that was the closest place I knew and I'm familiar with it. So I stayed back, and I had no idea what to do, how to go about it. Did the same thing, started hanging out with other artists, started going to like really like underground art scenes, which are like pop-ups, graffiti showdowns, and like art jams and stuff. Just locally organized stuff. Hip hop ciphers, metal gigs.
So how are you making money at that time to sustain yourself, live alone in Delhi?
Whatever little projects I would get, like whatever little illustration projects or design projects. But by the time I'd also got a contract from Red Bull for a project. So whatever money I made, it was not like a lot of money because it's like a prize money thing. I got a proper contract, and whatever money I got from that, I spend it like on art and things like this. And of course, by the time when I won Red Bull Championship, my parents had also gone around. They changed their mind, so they also became a little supportive. So if I needed help, my father would help me now and then. But then again, it was not like a, oh, you can do whatever you want. Like here's like lakhs and lakhs of rupees, just go spend and waste it. No, it was never like that because we were not rich. So I started working, and again, this is what I've realized: if your intentions are honest, if you have a vision, you'd always find people who'd believe in you, and that honesty sort of translates well more than anything else.
Can you name a few people who really bet on you? Any mentors
In
or
Delhi at that time, I met KK Mittal sir and Anubhav Mittal, who were the head of. KK Mittal was the head. He was the secretary of Ministry of Culture, and I met him through, again, I was doing like a live thing, and sort of display of some of my work at this thing, Indira Gandhi Center for Arts, IGNCA grounds, and was part of Northeast Festival, which is again very food and tourist kind of stuff. It's nothing to do with that, not that much to do with art at all. But now it has become very art centric because I was the only first artist who they promoted and helped. Sham Kanu sir, so was there. Ranjan Engti from Metropolis Asia was there. So these guys are the only people who are doing stuff outside of Assam and trying to bring like artists from Assam and Northeast into Delhi and other parts and places, which is very bureaucratic in nature.
If I just ask you honestly, like, do you feel like when we talk about the cultural affairs ministry in India specifically, because there is a lack of trust that young people have on
The
our
government?
government, yeah.
Yes.
So just to understand, like, what's the genuine support? Is there a genuine want there to support
Yes, there is.
artists from India?
There is, but the thing is, it's a lot of artists,
Yeah.
and it's a government, and they have only limited resources to go around. That's why it makes it difficult. It's not that they don't have any plans. It's not that they don't have like residencies and stuff. They're very, very actually receptive
Yeah.
to arts and art, especially fine artists and
Okay.
traditional artists. But there's always a little gap because there's always a lot of middlemen
It comes
involved.
down to money, no, at the
Money,
end of it.
definitely, it comes down to money. It
Unfortunately,
comes down
yeah.
to contracts and subcontracts and political issues and like living an impression and the bureaucratic system
Yeah.
basically. And it's there. Unfortunately, it's there. You can't do away with it any.
But the intention is there.
Intention is there, definitely. But then obviously there needs to be a lot of reforms because I don't think that we as a country we can't afford to just pay off artists to live their life and make art. We have too many mouths to feed.
Yeah.
And it's a dog eat dog world, as simply put.
Very true.
And I don't blame anyone other than myself for
Yeah,
my
there's
failures.
compassion for all sides.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe in a way, because
Yeah.
they've been really nice. I used to curate shows. I used to do. I did one show with Donor Ministry with Ministry of Culture. I created got bunch of artists from Assam and Northeast to showcase their stuff in Pragati Maidan and stuff like that. So they have been really kind and good to me. Even now, whenever there's some projects when it's related to like more contemporary art, more pop art stuff, they'd always call me. I would say in during my Delhi time, I started working with NDTV also. They had this Mojato art, a Mojato segment which was only dedicated to art. So they did interviews, they sold art and stuff. So Tara Roy, who was the founder and also co-owner of NDTV, we became really good friends. So we worked on Mojato together. I used to go for the whatever stuff that we used to do around. That was really nice.
I think it's very exciting to know all the things that an artist can do in like various on different platforms across industries. I think that's very, otherwise you just assume that the only thing that you can do is probably sell your art via Instagram or your e-commerce platform or to just showcase in galleries. But like this is, it's like very eye-opening in that sense of all the things you can do.
It helps. It helps to actually be more articulate with your like and be more vocal about things and also be presentable because I mean I've always considered like myself to be sort of a brand even though I'm not like I am capitalist in some way or the other. I need to make money to further my art, right? So I always treat myself as a brand. That's why I've always made a point that for me to express better, for me to reach out to a wider audience, I have to cater to certain things which may seem very superficial for me. And you have to understand that this is not being selling out. It's not being a sellout. It's basically finding tools to propagate your things better. It's all a means to an end. End of the day, it doesn't matter. None of this matters if you're getting what you want out of it. If you're using the correct way and if you're not harming anyone, all your steps are justified. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, because that's a constant fight, right? Like, even for me, am I selling out? Like, why am I not designing the way I used to when I was younger, where the stakes were much lower, but now you have salaries to pay and rents to pay and stuff like that. And it's real, right? Like, Because then at the end of the day, it's not like I can tell my carriers, look, to like this month, I just want to make like really cool, fun things. So I may not get any sales. So like I can't give you can't do that, right? You don't have that luxury when you have responsibilities. So that like that battle that a lot of creatives kind of fight internally, it's the loudest inside your own head, right? Which is why I have these conversations to actually talk about the fact that money is actually not the enemy, but it is a means to an end. And if we fix that relationship, a lot of our creative processes will actually find the outlet versus not having the funds and not having the access to, I mean, tools, technologies, softwares, karigars or artists. I mean, you need money for all of that. So, I mean, it needs to flow through the whole system. Like I say, it's like a bloodstream. It needs to flow. Like you can't just say, I'm an artist, so I actually don't care about it. Like I'm not gonna. You see such wonderful brands shutting down. You see such wonderful designers shutting down because they get very jaded. Then from Delhi, why did you decide to come to Bombay?
I think I felt like I had done everything that I could in that city at that time. I've almost worked everywhere around, everything was happening. But then I needed a little bit more, how to put it? I need more mix. I need a more wider mix of culture.
Right.
I need a wider exposure. I need to know more. I wanted to get back into the realm of subculture, into the realm of more things which were more niche in the outlook,
So it's
more
richer
independent.
in Bombay, you
I
feel?
feel like
It's
the
more Cosmo?
yes, more cosmo. There's more expression. There are more outlets. There are more platforms, more avenues, and there's always something for everyone. You can be you can be a weirdo and still find your little crowd here,
Yeah.
and you'll find people who are similar to that. If you listen to a certain kind of music, you'll still find a little dingy old dive bar where people still listen to that kind of stuff and still end up there. So that way, Bombay is much more inspiring in terms of finding our own corners, and that which helps you get inspired. At the same time, the fast pace of the city kind of keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
First time when I moved to Bombay, I was living in a very different place. I was staying behind a factory. It was like a small, tiny apartment, and it was always water leaking. There's no water. This that happening. So I would rarely stay inside my house. I'd just find reasons to be out the whole
Yeah.
day, and that kind of sort of inspired me to even like work harder because I was in places which were very different from where I was living in,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, this is doable. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I always had goals. Like in this time I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna have a studio by this time. I'm gonna do this. And it all came out of a necessity. It was not that okay, I wanna have a giant studio, like a big studio with double ceiling height, and I'm gonna like just buy it and then think what I'm gonna do with it. It was the other way around, where my work subjected me to have bigger space because I need to make bigger paintings.
Yeah.
And that's when I took up a bigger studio space.
Yeah. It was logical.
It's logical. So that's how it happened for me. So in Bombay, I started working. Romario was there, who he was my first manager, and I was working with this new age management style of music and artists. So he repped visual artists and musicians who were like completely up and coming, like new age ones, experimental genres, experimental visual artists. So it was me, Sajid Wajid, Bhatchin, and two more artists that he used to manage, Dead the Duck, who are like completely different. All of our styles are different, and it's all nobody even not very used to the kind of aesthetics that we put up. And he was like, it was fun. We had like a wild time. I painted on yachts, I painted on ships, I painted on cars. I was in weird places, in weird parties, doing weird stuff. It was
Which you
fun.
can't talk about
Which
here.
I can't talk about most of them, but it was quite fun, and
Yeah.
it all had to do with art. So it was brilliant. Like I wanted that. I really wanted that like recklessness to, and
Chaos.
the chaos. I was longing for it because Delhi was not that chaotic, even though it was, because I painted in the weirdest places, like unimaginable. A part of being in like weird situations and doing what I do
Now I
best.
just have to know what is your weirdest place you've painted and the weirdest situation. Like,
Okay.
what is weird to you?
Nothing is weird to me actually.
Yeah, but what do you mean
But
by
I'm just saying
weirdest?
this through a context where someone else would find it weird.
You don't people don't expect you to do that. But
Yeah.
what is the weirdest place that you've painted in, or your weirdest experience?
Oh, that's a very hard question. Okay, I've painted in remote villages in like railway stations, which are in the middle of a desert, which no one has any idea about graffiti and art. I've painted in red light areas and districts. I've painted in like the most high, like the most expensive areas and all. I've vandalized bunch of stuff around those places. I don't know. Okay, okay, nobody can figure that out
No
now.
handcuffs here.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So
Good.
yeah, a bunch of other stuff like this. Like in sometimes I'd go do a show, then I'll just vandalize certain things in and around. Very mischievous behavior.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of people's places and a lot of establishments that I can't take names of
Yeah, of course.
has certain drawings and certain pieces by me which are hidden throughout.
Do you feel like now that you mentioned you have mouths to feed, so there is responsibility attached to your work and your art. Um, so do you think artists need to have like a plan B or like a side hustle?
It's very circumstantial. Like, okay, now I've been in both the sides when it comes to art. I've been part of like art shows and art communities where come from very like privileged backgrounds, like very like safety net is there. And I've also been in the scene where there's literally no safety net. Everyone comes from like broken homes. Everyone's just doing whatever they can to make ends meet, but still following their passion.
Personally, which art do you enjoy more consuming?
Uh, I like both, but the latter. I really like when it's coming from a place of no safety net.
Right.
Like I like it when it's not coming from privilege, when it's like raw, it's half done, and it's not refined. That's what I like. Ideally, see, it's very logical. If you don't survive, your art won't. Simple. Like, and you have to understand that you'll have to figure out a way to make your art survive.
Yeah.
It's not about you anymore. It's about your art also. So if you're hungry, if you're gonna starve yourself to death, nobody's gonna know about your art.
Do you feel like in your art community, people take your work seriously?
I mean,
I mean, that's very subjective again for me to ask,
yeah,
but what do you feel?
face value, I do have a very strong core audience because my art is not exactly very like it's hard to box it in at at this point right now because if you see the current art scene, it's very different from
What is it?
what people put up, what's in right now, what are in galleries and stuff. I've only done one gallery show. I've only done like one show in my entire thing, and I never sell my pieces.
Oh,
And like whatever other stuff I do is all commissioned, all brand stuff, I design stuff and all. But my art is very personal right now, and I don't have the need to sell any of them. So I've always kept them safe with me, and I'm just sitting on a like a huge pile of artworks,
okay.
and the appreciation that I get for it, it's from a different kind of crowd. I mean, art like people in the art scene also really like me, but I've never felt like I need to be a part of it because I don't come from that
I
thing.
get
I
that.
come from a very punk metal, very like how to put it, unrefined background when it
Raw.
comes to art, like very raw.
Yeah.
And I sometimes again now that's what I'm saying. Even now I feel like a misfit when it comes to like going to fancy art stuff,
Yeah.
like and art events and all. I'm like, I'll just show up. That's
Just
it.
show
Where's
up,
the
yeah.
booze? That's it.
Yeah. So, you did engineering and you were like, okay, this is not really the science that I love. So then you dropped out and then you went back to your hometown
Yes.
and then you took up engineering again.
Yeah.
Uh,
I thought I'll give it a second chance.
yeah.
I'm someone who always believes in second chances because the universe or the people have always given me chances when it comes to my career, my choices, being alive for that matter.
Yeah.
So I always like to see like the good and I always like to see that okay, the situations might be different, things might be different. So I thought okay, maybe I'll give engineering a second chance because maybe I failed to understand a lot of things. So I was doing chemical back then in Chennai.
Oh,
I was really into
okay.
like I was really into organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry. I loved it. And then later I figured okay, I also like physics, so I took up mechanical. So chemical I did, then I did again mechanical, where I really loved mechanical. Weirdly, I only passed in two subjects, I think fluid mechanics and machine drawing. The rest I failed. And in chemical, I only passed in organic and yoga. So
What's yoga?
yeah, we had yoga in SRM for some reason.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
but then that was a very turbulent phase because I sort of was discovering myself what I really wanted, and chaos seemed a very beautiful and a very comforting side to
Yeah.
turn to.
Yeah.
So I was always like fighting against a lot of things. I don't know where the angst came from, but I was always against things.
Angst came from where you were
And right now I
born
know,
and
but
brought
back
up.
that
At
time
that time, you didn't.
I
But
didn't
also,
realize.
teenage angst, when we're dealing with it, we don't really know where it's coming
Correct.
from. My brand is also called Papa Don't Preach because I was like, yes, rebellion, right? Like,
Correct.
don't preach. And I'm still very much like that. Like, I have a big issue with authority,
Same.
huge issue with
Same.
authority, right? So, I mean, that is natural. But people like us, I feel we carry it forward to all the phases of our life. A little
Yes.
bit of that, I'm going to do it my way. There's another thing that you said, which is art is error. Why do you say that?
It, logically, it shouldn't exist. Yeah,
Why do you say
I
that?
mean, art helps us cope. Like I said, art is also like a summary of a lot of things about a civilization. Art is also it's an expression. Like anything that doesn't have an sort of objectivity to it, sort of it doesn't help in your evolution.
It doesn't help.
Physical evolution. I'm
Right.
talking about the natural evolution of things. It can be deemed as a vestigial part of
Because it's more
civilization.
emotive and about
Yes,
feelings
it
and expression,
correct.
abstract.
I
Yeah.
mean, if there's a huge war, or something or the other, I mean, doesn't matter if you're an artist or whatever, you're gonna get drafted. Your art's not gonna help you win or survive in any of the scenario. You can't use art to farm. You can't use art to sustain like or survive. Like I mean, industries or it comes to things which are very basic in nature. Art. A lot of people see art as a luxury. A lot of people
Yeah.
see art
Of
as
course, it's higher
a
thinking.
high
It's,
thinking, right? A
yeah.
lot of people also think art is something also very necessary for the human condition to survive and understand like us as beings.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like it's an error because we are always trying to figure out like why me, what's the meaning behind this. There's always some sort of a void that we're trying to chase. There's always a dragon that you're chasing which you feel like, okay, I'm going to get close to this, of understanding this. And you try to figure yourself out, you try to figure the world around you, but then you do it from a point where you don't know what you're exactly doing. Like art is an error in a way because you're not supposed to be making art to survive. Why do you sort of take to it so much? It's an
Why do
anomaly.
you?
Why do you take it? Why do you feel moved by it? Why is so visceral? Why does it move you? Why does it like crawl
It
under your
gives you
skin
goosebumps.
sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why? And we can't simply answer that in a very how to say it, in a very
In
holistic
a
way,
logical,
in
in
a
a
logical
linear
way, in
way.
a linear
Yeah.
way. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to it. Like everything in this world, when it comes to survivability, when it comes to people understanding the universe, is always black and white. It's
Yeah.
always ones and zeros. So it's plus and minuses,
Binaries.
binaries, right? But then this realm lies in a whole, like it's basically understanding who created us,
Yeah.
right? Why does this soul exist?
Existential.
Existential stuff, and
Yeah.
that is an error because it distracts you. Like I'd rather farm and feed my people and keep myself fed and survive rather than sit and ask questions like this.
This is very interesting to me personally. Okay.
Okay.
Because for me also there are like really strong phases where I'm just like I'm making bags, shoes, clothes means क्या उखाड़ लिया मतलब क्या करूंगी मैं इतने बना के, what am I doing in this world, like what's the purpose, what's the meaning and all of that, like existential. I have to keep coming back to understanding and falling back in love with the very physical aspect of what I do. I can understand the abstract aspect of it, that it's art, it is expression. I'm giving people the tools to express. But then when you see the physical manifestation of it, you're just like, okay, I mean, it's very external, it's very superficial. So I have to keep coming back and finding meaning in that.
Correct.
And what I understood that when we look at art and what we do from a very capitalistic lens, which is kind of what you're doing, because
Yeah.
you're talking about survival, and you're
Correct.
talking about survival in a world where roti kapda makan
Yes. It's
is what it is. It's
yeah.
what it takes. And for roti kapda makan, you just have to make money. So then you're like, okay, if I'm able to sell it, I'm able to do all of that.
Correct.
Um, but say if we were not living in a capitalistic society, like say our society had adapted some other form of existence,
Correct.
do you still think art to be would be an error or an anomaly?
Yes.
Yeah.
I still think it is. I like to think it like that. I
Yeah.
like to keep it like that. For me, I like to keep art something which doesn't fit. An error
Doesn't
never
make
fits in.
sense.
Doesn't
Like
make
it's
sense.
a misfit forever.
Ever, forever.
So that's why you find like,
yeah, that's
okay,
right.
we're
Yeah.
buddies.
I
Like,
choose my battles carefully. So I choose this to be an error, and
Yeah.
it's my personal take on it because that gives me meaning.
Yeah,
That
you're
gives
the
my
glitch.
meaning. Yeah,
You're the glitch.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it has to be a glitch.
Yeah. Okay, so even in your art, and I was going through a lot of the work that you do, especially in the captions, you always talk about consciousness and you talk about very spiritual aspects of what you're trying to showcase or represent. What is your relationship with that? Like, I know that we spoke about being existential in a sense, but on a deeper level, what are your anchors, spiritual anchors? What is your understanding of who created us?
My spiritualism, my anchor actually lies in the process of understanding how things work. It can be through actions, it can be through the daily stuff that I do, it can be the art that I make, the process and everything. Because I'm not interested at the like at the end goal.
Right.
There is
It's
no
the
end goal.
Is the journey.
It's the journey.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody knows.
Yeah.
I don't know what will happen if I die. I don't know if the soul exists. I don't know if there's a supreme consciousness or anything. But I know there is something which is always greater than who we are.
Right.
There's always something which is an error, like art,
Yeah.
right?
Something that I mean, basically, I understand what you mean by error. Something that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
But it exists.
It exists.
It's real.
Right? It's real. It'll obviously be there.
Like the Matrix.
Like everything, even around you, and it's all about context. Years back, we lacked certain technologies to understand. Okay, we didn't know they were like antimatter. Now
Yeah.
we know there's antimatter, right? So who knows in like later year would know that okay, this is how you measure the weight of your soul. I mean, people are still trying to do it, right? So with different time frame, with different things, why should we limit ourselves by thinking that okay, this is the hard truth of reality, and this is what it is? It might change in the next 100 years.
Absolutely.
So what is that? For me, that is what spiritualism is basically understanding, going in a realm where people have not been in, but you have an understanding of a certain ephemeral existence, and you
Right.
try to reach that point by the duty that you have been assigned to.
Wow.
For me, my duty is to make art, to express. And for me, for that, if I need to go through whatever condition that I have to, I'll go through it. I'll gladly accept it. And I'll use those things. And that's what spiritualism is for me.
100% is. I found that so beautiful because like when you read, at least because I'm a Hindu, you read Hindu texts, they call it swadharma, and swadharma is basically that how do you cleanse your karma, which is what you're saying is I've been assigned this duty and I'll do it and I'll do it, and whatever it takes I do it to be able to reach that realm where there is something. I was reading something and they said, when people give advice to young people saying to just be yourself and, find your calling to young folks. It's obviously like very, very hard advice because at that age, you don't know. Like how you said, when I was young, I didn't know where the angst was coming from. Now I know where it was coming from. But that point, when you're that young and you tell people, okay, just what is your calling? Be yourself, and you're just like, I don't know what am I, right? So at that point where a person is at that juncture, how would you define a person's approach or like understanding to what is their calling?
This is a personal take on this. I might be wrong, but this is what I've realized throughout my life. You basically start figuring and you start doing a lot of things. You start experimenting with things. Okay, you do this, you do that. then, I mean, okay, that comes from a point where you have the privilege of trying
Yes.
out things and understanding what is really your calling, and then you can pursue that. I've seen that happen with a lot of people. I've also seen people who actually are born with this certain idea of what they need to do, and they'll take that the step. Basically, some like prodigies and stuff. When as a kid you know, okay, I'm good at this. I'm gonna keep doing this, and you're obsessed by it, and that's your calling. I mean, it's a good thing because you have a head start. I wish I had a head start when I was like really, really young, and they'd send me to art school. But then also there are instances where you find your calling through a lot of turbulence and a lot of hard work, because I think discipline also kind of teaches you what your calling is.
As you said, mechanical engineering kind of gave you that discipline.
Exactly. So I think if I didn't know art, if I not, was not into other like if I didn't start questioning other stuff like human consciousness or human conditions, I'll still be a engineer.
So, what you're telling people is that if you have the luxury, give it time, experiment.
Explore. Exploration is very important for you to figure out who you are, and then obviously through sheer hard work, like there's always talented people, there's always hard work. We have this whole okay, at hard work beats talent and stuff.
Yeah.
That is very true. I really strongly believe that.
Really?
No matter how talented you are, if someone who's been practicing way, I mean, you will have a head start, definitely, no matter what. But if you sort of only rely on your talent and you don't back it up with skills, someone who has practiced, someone's worked way harder than you, honing the talent that they never had, will sort of create their own universe, have their own direction,
Wow.
would come across their own calling way before you,
The talented
the
one
talent
sitting
one, like
comfortably.
sitting comfortably. Okay, I know I can make this, I can think like this, I can paint this. Then you do keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Then you'll sort of stunt your growth. I mean, and you sort of be in a delusion that this is my calling. It might not be a calling just because you're born with a talent and in a certain way, and you're only practicing that without putting in the effort, without putting in the hard work, without being like uncomfortable. You might miss out on a bigger calling
Yeah.
because it's all phases.
Right.
Back then, I didn't know that art is my calling, but I've always been doing art. I thought engineering was, science was. It was only when I put in the hard work, when I put in the hours and the effort in, that's when I realized, okay, this is what my calling is. Because I put in the hard work to understand my style. I've put in the hard work to understand what direction I have to go in, and this works for me.
So, do you think hard work is a skill that you can build into yourself, or do you
Yes.
think you're born with that kind of drive, and you're born with that kind of resilience, and like your growing up years, and probably your trauma, and probably your environment teaches you to be resilient?
It does. Environment. I mean, it's all circumstantial. A lot of this is circumstantial. Like, and again, I'm saying this because there's a lot of different elements at play. It's very hard to say that okay, it's because I was born in a certain place, the circumstances were different. That's why I'm resilient. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not resilient at all. Maybe it's just all just distractions for me to sort of get away from who I am, and I'm not playing the hard game at all. I could be wrong, but I think uh, my condition was that I wanted to speak, and there is a thing that the term that me and Dhruv came out with this was this whole idea of silent scream. So because this angst feels like a silent scream, like you want to scream out a lot of things, you want to say a lot of things. You've been subjected to a lot of how to put it. You've been subjected to a lot of things which have always put you down, always confined you, and you want to scream out. And for that scream to come through in the way that you want, you need that hard work, you need those skills to communicate it in a certain way. And I feel like that process of trying to put that work out, put that expression out, is what made me resilient. Like, if you can scream one time, people will not listen to you. You can scream two, three times. But if you're screaming it for years, people will turn around and listen. So I think that's the belief which kind of made me resilient because I'm not going to fail. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and things are going to turn around. For some people, it takes 10 days. For some people, it'll take 10 years. Or maybe it'll never happen in my lifetime. It's fine. I'm okay with that. I might die without achieving the things that I wanted to achieve. But it's deep down somewhere back in a village in Assam, somebody will like, oh, this is a Shantanu Hazarika piece of work. This is what his journey was. Maybe there'll be only 10 views in a documentary or a mini series or maybe a podcast also. But if that inspires someone, I'm more than happy.
Say goodbye to nipple chafing with Aquaman nipple covers. These are literally coin-sized, non-adhesive, reusable, hypoallergenic nipple covers. Check them out on niposh.com. So do you agree with the phrase, like the poet needs the pain?
I definitely do.
Yeah.
I definitely do. You again, discomfort. For some people, happiness can be a form of discomfort because I feel like happiness is very alien. Like,
Wow.
and I have anxiety if I'm happy because I feel like, okay, what if this
gonna
is
go
gonna
away.
go away really fast? What if something's really bad gonna happen? If I'm so happy right now, something really bad's gonna happen the next day.
Yeah.
So I would rather be in a state of perpetual contentment or maybe content with sadness because that helps me think better. Solitude kind of works really good for me.
What is your relationship with money? Because there are two versions of you, right? There was Santanu who grew up in Guwahati, where he was creating art so that he could sell it and then buy more comic books. So you understood the relationship with money very quickly. That even for you to be able to practice your own art, you needed money, and that is probably what has helped you today to be able to do, you know, the business aspect of your work. So that was your understanding when you were young. What is your relationship today um, with money? Yeah, as an artist.
I feel like money is a tool. I've always considered money to be a tool to help you like propagate or do the things that you always wanted to do. I'm never attached to money because I know I've come from nothing. And if I lose everything, I can still start from scratch.
Wow.
And I can do it in a much better way because I've always walked this road. I've walked it once. It's not a big thing for me to walk through it again or go through it again. And in fact, I'll be more experienced.
Right.
So I feel like money is a tool, and I don't mind using money to its fullest extent to achieve and propagate my art and do things how I want to do it. And also, with money, there's a lot of aspirations that I always had growing up. For example, I always wanted to look a certain way. I always wanted to collect certain things, and which I could never afford as a kid. So with money, I'm just doing the things that I couldn't do as a kid.
What are you collecting today?
I mean, figurines, like comic books,
Yeah.
sneakers, clothes, traveling. I mean, all the like stuff, all these kind of stuff that I could never afford as a kid.
So your exposure growing up was just comic books,
Comic books.
maybe, and that also must have happened a little later in your later years.
Okay, it's weird because it's not only been comic books. It has been comic books, obviously, yes, direct inspiration, but it has also been a lot of mythology. My grandmom, I spent a
Really?
lot of time with my grandmom, and she was a devout uh, Gopal or Krishna Bhakt.
Really?
So she would tell me all the stories, all the different mythologies in and around like Krishna or maybe Mahabharata and stuff like that. And I was really interested because it's a beautiful fantasy world. Like I don't know, it may be controversial to call it fantasy, but
No, I know
but
what you mean. Because
yeah,
as a kid, it is like a massive
yeah,
like scene opening up in front of you.
yeah,
So many characters and
correct.
like divine
Oh,
powers and like
exactly.
yeah,
It's
it's
beautiful. It's like it's endless, and there's so many stories that like she used to tell me to put me to sleep. So many stories that throughout that were so profound, and it was so deep. At that time, you only liked the pageantry of the stories,
yeah.
not the deeper morale to it or any of the stuff. And later on, when I started studying like Hindu philosophy, started reading up books by Devdutt, and then I got into more research based work because I used to do a lot of reading on Upanishads and Vedas early on.
Really?
Yeah, because I was very, I'm a very curious person. I would certainly I'll be reading something about antimatter and stuff like that, and I'll suddenly jump to something more esoteric, like esoteric studies, or maybe stupid stuff like even like Scientology and Mormonism and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's all like all scattered. So I used to do a lot of studies. Like I really like the Chandogya Upanishad. At one point, I was doing extensive research on that. And then I also really liked the understanding of Gita and how they like explain a lot of things when it comes to your senses,
Yeah.
creativity. So my thing was always a mix of those, like Western and Eastern storytelling, mythology, and
Did you ever try to draw Krishna as like a Dragon Ball Z character?
no, unfortunately
He's
not. But I've actually made Ganesha as like a heavy metal character in one of my
ah,
artworks with his Vahan. I grew up listening to all the stories that my grandmom used to tell me. I had a very vivid imagination, so I used to like imagine a lot of things. I grew up unsupervised around nature a lot,
I love that.
and
Yeah.
also I grew up unsupervised buying a lot of adult stuff from comic book stores and secondhand bookstores.
Okay.
So sexuality, like sex, is also a very important part of what I'm like,
Of course.
where my inspiration lies in, and I'm very very bold when it comes to like creating artworks which are straight up sexual in nature, because I feel like that's a very strong energy that I play around with,
It
and
is a powerful
it
energy.
is
You've told me that I think it is stories.
the stories, yeah,
Stories that
characters,
have actually inspired you
yes,
and that you found characters or like styles of like your aesthetic through comic books,
correct.
but it was actually just the stories
It's
in
just
your head
stories, yeah, it's
that
just
wanted to be told and wanted to
expressions.
be expressed and
Correct.
things.
And later I realized, like, because before it was taught to me as stories, right? Later when I started like studying more, understanding more, that like there's so much more truth to those stories.
Yeah.
And
In
there's
what
in
sense?
what sense, as in like remember we had this conversation about art being objective and subjective at the same time. I feel like these are the perfect examples, because these are ancient scriptures, things which have been written way back. People can consider them as fantasy. People can consider them as an expression. People can say it's a storytelling thing, right? And just move on. But there's so much truth in it. If someone who wants to find an answer, like I found clarity through a lot of these stuffs, and there's so many things that it's filled with ironies, it's filled with questions, it's filled with more questioning morality, existence, and stuff like that. If you and it depends on how you look at it. Objectively, I can look at it that I'm getting this thought out of it. It's bringing in clarity. This is okay. This is right. This is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. It has a set of conduct which
Yeah.
sort of guides human beings throughout their questioning and their journey throughout
But
life.
also, what I love about these scriptures is that they're actually not telling you that anything is sinful in the
Yeah,
sense of
exactly.
like, that's wrong. It's
That's
telling you,
wrong.
okay, do it. I mean, this is also fine. That's also fine. If that is your path, if this is
This
your
is
path, if that
correct.
is your
Yeah.
path. So it teaches you so much of like empathy of different people with their different journeys. And I think, sorry, so you were saying,
Yeah, exactly. That's
yeah,
what being subjective and objective is
yeah,
like, being like, right? It's not telling you
I
anything,
get that
but it's
now.
also telling you a lot of things.
Yeah,
Like, I can find the meaning that I want in that, and it's so beautiful. And it's art. That whole art of storytelling is reflected through those works.
yeah,
Like, something so old is so relevant till now. Why? Because it is the perfect balance of balance of objectivity and subjectivity. Because it's a beautiful art form. The world they've created, the characters, development, the things that you see around, it's so vivid. It's so
yeah,
beautiful. There's so much to it. The world building, that's the art in it, right?
yeah.
But also it has so much meaning. It has so much it answers so many questions, so many deeper questions. There's science in it, there's logic in it, there is understanding of human condition in it, which is very objective, which is very universal.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why it still survives and is still relevant, and that's how I want my art to be. And that's what the beauty of a perfect designed artwork lies in at. If you can be relevant throughout thousands of years and you're still doing it the way it's supposed to be.
So do you find it, I don't know, a little annoying that you have to explain the art that you put out there? Like, do people need you to explain it
I
and describe it, or it's
it acts as a filter for me.
yeah.
People who get it, who respond to it the correct way, then I understand. Okay, you are in, like, you get it. Even if it's just one person, if it's two-person, I don't know, 10 people getting it, and it makes sense. I mean, that's all I want. I don't want everyone to understand it. It just kills the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I want people who can relate, they just cut off all the noise and straight get to the point of relating to what the artwork is about. I think that's what I want. Like recently, I did a 3-part series. It's called Rebirth, Reptiles, and Antidepressants. So it's like a black and white charcoal and digital mixed media work. And that was a whole journey because before that I had never uh, sketched or put myself in my artworks. I've always done self portraits, but I've never put myself in a plane, in a landscape. This was the first time that I was in a very different zone. I was going through a lot of things. I had a huge episode, and which lasted for almost like half a year almost. And I was going through a lot of things, lot of change in personal life, in my growth, and I was in a very terrible place. But in that zone, I understood that I unlocked a whole different level and something that was very familiar because over the last few years I had become a little comfortable with where I was, and that got a little monotonous for me, and the growth that I was looking in my art kind of stopped.
I think that's beautiful because what you actually just laid it all out is clearly takes me back to the scriptures that you're talking about, like the whole, like the humans shedding their clothes and then being reborn again and then struggling and feeling lost in this world and then trying to make sense of things and trying to build their own stories, like, which is pretty much what we're doing. And then the cycle kind of continues until it breaks. So I think I always really enjoy understanding the origin stories of all artists because it is so clear, where it kind of started from. The themes continue, the patterns continue, the expression of it changes, of course, but the themes, they actually never really die. They just keep evolving. And what I really love about how you've been talking about your depression or your episodes or your trauma, you don't really use it in a language that is self victimization. It is empowered in a sense to say that, okay, that excites me. Like, what can I do with it? Like, that's material. What can I do with it? Um, so that awareness I love because I think that right now in the world that we're living in, it's getting very confusing how trauma is being understood, how it's being processed, and what is the manifestation of it. The manifestation of the pain that people are experiencing is, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but it's just adding more pain and more like trauma out into the world. Like, there is no transcending idea of my trauma becoming this, which is what you are kind of narrating here, which I find lovely, and hopeful. And I think that hope is just so powerful. We are talking about mythology, and very interestingly, like I said, themes kind of continue from childhood. It is your work and your illustration that you did based on Devdutt Patnaik's Seven Secrets of Vishnu that actually got you to win the Red Bull Championship, which honestly, like, as
Doesn't
much
make
as we may want or not want it has kind of defined your
Yeah,
career
correct.
in like the landscape of successful artists. Um, so, like, what is your take on that? Like, on art, like your idea of art and all that you want to say and put out in the world, but it actually getting like filtered or watered down to that one championship that you won. Like, how do you see that and how do you understand that as a journey as an artist?
Okay, now this one, like, it was Red Bull Doodle Art Championship, right? So people even now think that I doodle stuff. But I did for the longest time. Technically, that's what I did. I sat back of my like classrooms and I just sketched and doodled on my notebooks. And for the longest time, I had a very love-hate relationship with this term because people started boxing me as this kind of artist. And even now, it still goes on. But I've just realized, I mean, it makes sense. Like, of all the things that I've observed and the things that I've gone through, my life is full of ironies. Like, and it only makes sense that I would be using something which sounds so irrelevant, not irrelevant, something sounds so frivolous, something
Yeah.
sounds like doodle. It's very childish, right? And something like that would actually define my career, something that would empower me to propagate my expression and my thoughts.
Right, right.
It kind of makes sense. Then after a few years, I just accepted it. I'm like, yeah, I doodle, but my doodles are different. My
Yeah.
expressions are different. I mean, you can call me as this, but then okay, now here's this real story. Okay, this is, you know about this. This is a separate whole surface layer,
Yeah.
but here's a real layer for you. Surprise.
Yeah.
So I've sort of got around again using that and and have got like come at peace with it, where I've accepted this whole thing idea about this. It's fine. People who really want to know more would know more about me,
Yeah.
not just about doodle art,
And that's
right?
what matters at the end of it.
Yes,
So, okay, you're not a doodle artist. So, what are you?
I am. I'm a visual artist.
A visual
I'm a,
artist.
I'm a multidisciplinary visual artist. I practice with bunch of stuff, everything. Like I'm not shy of practicing with any medium. Like I experiment with like paints, murals, designing stuff, clothes, shoes, almost everything. Like if I can get my hands on any medium or anything that helps me express better, or something that I would want to create or explore, I'll do it.
So, how do you upskill? How much time, money, effort do you put into like,
Upscaling.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. Upscaling requires help. I won't, and it's not easy. I won't say that, okay, you can by yourself, you can upscale, but also depends on what kind of scale that you're looking at. I mean, it's very relative to artist to artist. Some people like would practice with one kind of medium and keep it confined to that. Then they will consider scaling up. For them, scaling up maybe one size more, maybe diverting into a different medium could be a huge thing. For me, scaling up is again becoming universal in nature. Like, for example, every other product, like I've had so many canvases, like starting from electronic equipments to cars to buses to shoes, clothes, like all different varied mediums that I've worked with.
yeah.
That is scaling up for me. Maybe the next phase in my life, I want to use humans as a canvas, which I'm actually going to in like next few months.
Do you think India is ready for all that the artists here want to kind of put out? Is it a safe environment for you to practice your art?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so. And if it's unsafe, it's fun for me.
yeah.
Yeah, if it's a little risky, then if you're making art, if you're not risking something or the other, it just beats the fun element out of it.
So would you choose to be an artist in India versus anywhere else in the world? Because like there is a lot more evolved appreciation because as you know we discussed that it is a higher thinking and it is a privilege to talk and think about art,
Art,
which a huge chunk of India still doesn't have the luxury to
correct.
do. So would you want to be an artist only if you had a choice? Would you
Okay,
choose to
let
be a
me put that in a way that I would choose to be an artist in any part of the world. If I was in Japan, I'd still make the art that I'm doing. If I'm in India, I'll still make the same art that I want to do or make. This being born in a country, because I've always fought against conditions
right?
and conditioning since a very young age. So irrespective where I'm put, I will always be the person I am. And so for me to actually look for better opportunities outside, or maybe thinking that, okay, I could express better if I was in any other part of the world, sort of not very, I don't find it very logical for me,
Right.
because I still do the same thing here.
You know, there's Steven Spielberg when he was asked to change a scene in E.T. where, you know, the cops are running behind the kids with guns in their hand, and now, you know, you gun violence and
Oh
all of
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and he was asked to change that scene because, you know, like, that's not cool, like cops running behind kids with guns. And to which he said that, you know, as a filmmaker, as an artist, it is my responsibility to tell stories of that time the way they were
Yes,
and the truth that was.
yes,
So I am there to document that time, and at that time that was fine, and I'm not going
yes.
to go back. And same thing happened with probably gone with the wind,
Yes.
where that has also kind of been blacklisted and cancelled in a sense. But it is a story about its
Yes,
time.
exactly.
So this kind of censorship, this kind of a reaction, the woke culture, uh, becoming very extreme. Like it started with all the good intentions, but the way it is right now, and you spoke about polarization being a good thing, but I do question polarization in a social media landscape where there is minimal responsibility of what you're saying and what you're putting out there, and cancel culture, so to say. Um, do you think that impacts like art and artists and how honest you're able to be?
It definitely does. It definitely does. Like it can be a countermeasure to how things are. I can see me as an artist. I'm a non-conformist.
Right.
I would
Of
I
course.
would not conform to anything. If this is the current idea of confirmation that you need to cancel out everything,
Yeah.
then I would take a step back. Like everything for me needs to have logic and justification, and just because you're gonna change something now doesn't mean that it has never happened before,
Right.
right? So you should be able to come to terms with it and basically understand the context of the situation. You can't simply be in a delusional world where you simply delete those things out and you feel like it has never happened. That's really not right. It's really not right. And I think at today's age with cancel culture, I mean, it has done a lot of good. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's done a
Absolutely.
lot of good. It has given a lot
Like
of
Me Too movement, I think by far has
yeah,
been the
it's
best thing
empowering.
that has happened
Yes,
to
that's the
the
most
world. Yeah.
beautiful, like it's the most empowering thing, and having that power to actually take a stand and speak up against things, it's beautiful, and be it through social media. And I'm really glad that the younger generation know that what power they have. But again, radicalization. Now,
Yeah.
polarization is there, and also radicalization is there, right? This is more like a radical
Right.
standpoint. Like when
Right.
you're going totally radical thing with
Extreme.
extreme with this is not an expression. This is not, you're not having polarizing views. You're actually having radical thoughts of actions, of
Yeah.
taking actions.
Right.
And that's where, for me, an artist, polarization is limited to the expression or the feelings and the things and the emotions that one would do or what one would relate to through the art. This is more like a radicalization, and that is not right,
Got it.
because you need to have a backstory, you need to understand the context, you need to understand why.
Empathy, compassion, like
Compassion,
basics like
exactly.
that. Yeah.
So you're becoming like the people that you're fought against, right?
Yeah.
And like how people say, nice, like you end up becoming your enemies,
Yeah. Your
right?
oppressor,
The
you end up being
oppressor,
your
right?
oppressor.
So
Yeah.
that's not right. Yeah, I mean, that's why you should always, I mean, I would expect people from the current generation to have more open-mindedness towards things. You can't force certain things, like especially when it comes to pronouns and stuff, right? Now you can't force our parents, our grandparents, to understand it within just few months
Yeah.
time or few weeks time. For them to understand a very simple thing like the word cool took like a decade
Or
to sort of,
guys,
or
like my
guys.
dad was really upset when my younger sister was like, guys, can you come in? He was like, we are guys to you?
Exactly. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
so you need to have patience. Just because you're radical, you're polarized, you're like a free soul, and you're woke, doesn't mean that you need to be impatient. You have to be impatient. You need to be patient
Yeah.
with all the movements, all your thoughts, and all the things that you're fighting for. You need to have that patience to understand that timelines are different
Brilliant. Yeah.
and your ideologies are different. It's a different time that we live in. Things are very new, things are fast, and you can't expect the same thing from the other people. It'd be wrong for us to expect the newer generation to understand how things were before. And we don't
Absolutely.
subject that,
We
we
have to
don't
have
project that.
compassion for that as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, it works both
We can't
ways.
project that on them, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, they should also project that. Obviously, awareness is very important. Everyone needs to be aware of what's right, what's wrong, what's relevant. But that doesn't mean that you'll be aware to a point where you're so radical
Yeah.
that
My
you,
way or the highway.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You can't do that.
How much time do you think artists should give themselves in terms of like years? Like, okay, you said you have plans, right? Like by this age or this year, I need to have a studio. I need to have this kind of a lifestyle. I need to be in like these many galleries, perhaps. So how much time do you think artists should really give themselves to experiment, figure it out, put themselves out there, put in the hard work?
I would say it varies. Again, it's very circumstantial. Again, same thing. I mean, some people, like, the processes are different. Some people like to take their time with the paintings and the output, and they would like to sort of, when they're satisfied, they'll feel like putting it out there, and there's nothing wrong with that. But my take is like, I want to make art, like, I want to just keep making art as much as I could. And I don't want to just get stuck with one thing. And I have this thing, I can't go back to an art piece the next day.
Same here.
I'll just lose it. I forget. I can't. I find it boring. I
Yeah.
hate it.
People ask me like, which is your favorite piece in the collection? I'm like, which collection? When, like, it's, I have no idea. I don't want to talk about it. Like,
Yeah,
ugh.
yeah,
Like,
ew,
yeah.
it's done. No,
Yeah.
out. I don't want to look at it
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
So so that's my process. If I make something, I make it a point that I have to finish it within a day.
Wow.
So
That's quick.
So everything I've done till now, every painting I've done, except for the murals and more complex canvas designs, every other paintings that's been done, which is a personal piece of mine, doesn't matter how big it is, I've always made it a point to finish it within one day.
That is insane.
And yeah, that's how I function. I need to make, and sometimes I'll make one paintings, 3 4 paintings within 3 days, and then I'll have a huge like lull period of a month where I will not do anything,
Yeah, that makes sense.
because I'm constantly having outbursts of creativity, and then I go back into my shell of self-doubt and imposter syndrome, thinking that I suck,
Yeah.
or I'm not painting, and we should practice
I'm
more.
lazy.
I'm lazy and
Yeah,
all that.
procrastination is heavy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've realized something. Sometimes if I'm having a creative block, I would make it a point to go to my studio and just sit down and make something,
I agree.
draw even line,
Even shit.
even shit doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like just do
Eject it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be constipated.
Yeah.
Just shit it out. So talking about like putting yourself out there in terms of like the world that we're living in right now, we are supposed to be artists, we're supposed to create work, we're also supposed to be political and at the same time not be political. We're supposed to make stuff that is viable, it's saleable, that people can relate with to sustain ourselves. At the same time, we're supposed to make thought provoking stuff, innovative stuff, disruptive stuff. Um, and at the same time, I feel like when I started, my competition was maybe like 20, 25 people that I knew of, right? Like this was when Facebook had just about happened and Instagram had just about happened. So my world was limited to say probably my friends, my peers, my parents, friends, kids, shall maximum how much you can. Like that was my competition. Now I'm sitting here and somebody in like Germany has made something and I'm just like, why didn't I think of that? Or I have an idea and I'm like, you know what we should do, and be like, okay, so that's like that now, that person has done it. What do you think about that?
This is what I've got from the Gita. The understanding of creativity is basically, we are all born by the same senses. The same 6 senses sort of dictate how we interact and what are the things that we sort of formulate in our head. Our experiences are under the control, under the influence of how we perceive things through our senses.
And limited in that
And limited
sense.
in the sense. You perceive things through your senses, becomes electrical signals, go out through your nerves, your brain gets triggered, and you have certain nostalgia, smell, thing, whatever. Thoughts they come in, right? And that forms your ego, that forms your idea of who you are, that forms the idea of the surrounding and the world around you. Now, if those combinations of your senses are same and it's nothing unique about it, you feel and see the same things as I do.
Yeah.
Our senses are the same. It's only natural that you're going to end up creating things which are a combinations of things that you might have common with someone else because they have the same senses.
True.
And so the whole idea of beating yourself up, thinking that, oh, I'm going to create something that has never existed and never discovered, it's going to be groundbreaking, it never works.
Yeah.
Something or the other will always be influencing your work. It might be similar to someone else's work elsewhere in another part of the country. It's only because now that we have internet that we know, we can call things out. We can see, okay, this is like that, this is like this. But it's just impossible. And that's what we always face, like as artists. That's the root cause of imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
right? But that's what I've learned, that okay, you can't fight it, you can't ignore it. Might as well just come to terms with it. And also, I feel like art, again, good art is also a process of combining two things which are very polar, or nobody has ever thought of combining them together. Like for example, like why Shakespeare worked, because he could combine two different oddly related things into a beautiful sentence, into a screenplay. And I mean, and there's a scale of comparison, metaphor. And similarly with art that we create, we are not like sort of making a new color altogether.
Right.
We're taking subjects, different subjects, mixing
Right.
them together, juxtapositioning them in a way that is unique. But
Right.
that doesn't mean that they never existed, right?
Yeah.
It's just the combination, the process that we thought of, created by ourselves. So I think, yeah, that's how my imposter syndrome sort of stems out from. How are other people getting to combine those things in a different way? Why I'm not able to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah, we all suffer.
In all your answers, I've kind of seen the theme is that I need to showcase an entire journey to inspire folks back home, people back home, artists back home in Guwahati, or like in similar smaller cities that don't have access to so much. Um, so, do you feel like that is your purpose in some sense also? Like, do you see that that is your responsibility now? Like, to talk about your Guwahati art project?
I would say it's not a sense of responsibility. I would say it's an outcome. And I feel like it's a, and if you have a reward, which is inspiration, my sole purpose is to make art. My sole purpose is to completely immerse myself in this process of making art. And it doesn't matter if I burn myself down while at it. But if the byproduct of this is maybe money, fame, getting people inspired, I mean, that's beautiful. But I won't pay much attention to it, because these are rewards, these are outcomes. These things are not, these things are not my end goals. These are there because I'm pursuing my end goal, right? So I can't get carried away by it. But it helps. It is very encouraging, it's inspiring when someone from a like a remote place or a village, someone who can't even communicate well, but they'll tell you that how inspiring your art is to them, and how they take your journey as a benchmark, or maybe as an inspiration. And that inspires me. That doesn't, like, that's not the end goal, but that inspires me to reach for my end goal. So if right now, if I'm going through that, if this many people are getting inspired, tomorrow if I reach further closer to my end goal, more people will be inspired. And that's all there is to it. I don't let all of these things get to me or get to my head, because it's gonna be
It gets
the
heavy
worst.
then,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
and the
gets
brain
heavy.
brain slows down,
Yeah, I
honestly.
need to be free in order to like really do stuff how I want. I can't be tied down with the responsibility. Like, okay, this is my moral obligation. If this many kids follow me, this many people follow me who are young, impressionable minds and all, that's not gonna stop me from putting out something which is very controversial.
Right.
That's not the purpose. That's not. I'm selfish in that way.
Right.
That's
That
not
is so important for
that.
you to say.
That's for my art. That's not for you guys.
Right.
If you guys are getting inspired by it, it's fine. It's good. Good job. And I'm really happy that is inspiring me. But I'm not gonna like put out something thinking that this is gonna like uninspire you or sort of harm you in a way or something. I don't owe that social obligation,
Wow.
because
Okay.
I don't do that to myself. Why would I
Right.
do that to anyone else?
So again, talking about young creatives, I started my career at a point where collaboration was a big and a beautiful thing. I didn't always have the money or the resources to kind of say, hey, I want to collaborate with you, I can pay you X amount. There was a lot of like, I love your work and I think it'd be so great if we could do something together, if you'd agree to do that. And I think some of my most beautiful projects have come out of that. Um, but now I feel that we've entered a time where there is so much information online, which is like, if you're good at it, you better get paid for it. And what is your take on that? Like, I understand both sides of it, because there are people who are being taken advantage of, and their talents are getting taken advantage of, and they're not getting paid their dues, etc. But at the same time, is it kind of killing what we could do when we were a lot more about collaborating to create beautiful work together versus how much I'm going to get paid for it.
I mean, there's both pros and cons. Like even now, even if I'm not getting paid, I still do collaborations with fellow artists. I won't do that with a brand, of course, but I would do that with a fellow artist because then we have this creative uh, standpoint that we're going to do something which is free of any bindings.
Right. Okay, so let's put it this way. Like, what are the other currencies apart from just money? Like, you're saying you'll collaborate with other artists because, of course, you're seeking an end result which would equate to something that is not to do with money. So, what are these other currencies that creatives can create?
Okay, first is cross sharing of your audience. Obviously, if you're collaborating with a few artists who are of a different aesthetic or a style, you're doing something unique. You're bringing something new to the table. Second, it's also a moment for you to grow because you're working with someone else. You learn a lot of things. You learn a lot of stuff. Third, obviously, you build a relationship, and this is what I've always like learned, that money or any resource cannot just come to you by itself. You need other people to facilitate that, sorry, and you need other people to help you with that. It can't just be you sitting and making your own work and just getting famous and getting whatever you want without anyone's help. So I feel like when it comes to collabs, you should always it should the essence of collaboration should be experimentation. It shouldn't be like, okay, I'm getting this much money, this is
Right.
the amount of effort I'm putting in, this is the amount of effort you're putting in, and it has to be a proper 50-50 thing, otherwise we're falling apart. No, it doesn't work that way. I
Right.
recently did a three-way collaboration with Mahindra and Not One.
I saw that.
Yes, so this was my first time that I did a fashion show and I
Fashion, yeah. It was
design
so
anything like
cool.
this.
With tires as
Yeah, with
prints.
tires. But tires, a bunch of other stuff that we had experimented with. It was really fun. So we made a whole entire collection for an entire show, which was a very new thing for me because I'm not a fashion designer,
Yeah.
but I like clothes. I love clothes. And we just sat down, we experimented stuff, we sketched and all. It was a learning process. Now, even though there was money involved, and because it was a brand deal, but the collaboration that we had, because they had reached out to me initially to do the show, then I'm like, no, I'm gonna
I need
learn,
a
I'm gonna
designer. Yeah.
make the most out of it. So if I'm making money out of it, it's good. So you guys are paying me to experiment.
Right.
So that's why I got Abhishek, not one, we've been friends for a long time. So I got him on board. I'm like, let's figure this out, let's work this out, and we sort of, I would say we both worked on it very closely. It became like us working together and collaborating.
Yeah.
And Mahindra sort of became the platform or the patron of what we are doing together.
Yeah.
And that's how it worked for us. I got to learn so much from him. And then he also sort of expanded in the realm of understanding art, and because he's a designer.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
You
so
learn
we,
so much that way, yeah.
so we had a different take on a lot of things. It was fun. It's beautiful. The experiences. And we as artists, what do we look forward to? We look forward to excitement.
Yeah.
Because things can be really mundane.
Yeah.
And we
And
sort of,
challenges, newer, like what
yes,
materials can we work with? This
yes,
fabric can't take this paint and this paint can't be worn, and like,
correct.
understanding those things.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think collaborations bring in that touch of excitement
Yeah.
because it's a new realm. You're working with other people. It also exposes you to a lot of things and finer workings. And you find us, maybe you end up finding someone who's similar to you, same vision, same thoughts about life and stuff, and yeah, it becomes a good relationship
Yeah.
forming thing. But then it can go south also. It cannot work out also. But
Yeah,
that's
of
the
course.
part
I
of
mean,
it.
that is life. I mean,
Yeah,
relationships of any kind, work or
correct.
partnerships or
Yes,
anything, they can work, they can't
yes.
work. You said your parents, as the oldest son in the family, they wanted you to do something responsible, like a responsible profession, like doctor, lawyer, and
Responsible
etc.
profession.
It was highly responsible for you of you to go get
Yeah.
adult content and comic books and make a career out of that. Um, so because it is very hard, and I would like to say, like, in India, but I think the world over, it is so scary for a parent to think my child is going to become an artist and probably not going to have money to feed himself, like let alone have a family, etc. And mostly is going to be a misfit in society because he's going to be like this person working in solitude and stuff like that. What would your message today be to parents of kids who want to be artists, especially from underprivileged backgrounds, where survival is the goal? What would your message be like just about bringing up kids like this?
I guess awareness is very important. Like, straight up, don't dismiss your child, saying that just because you have a rigid mindset towards something, because you have been conditioned in a certain way to believe certain things, you shouldn't project it onto someone who's an entirely independent person. And also, the parents should understand that you have to cut the umbilical cord somewhere down the line. That's the problem with Indian parents, is like they're so attached. They're so fearful.
Yeah.
And I think as an artist, if you're a budding artist, fear is something that will kill your like hopes and dreams at a very early stage. So asking the right questions to your kids,
Right. I think that's a very important
that's
point.
very important.
Do you think that artists who or people who study art have a certain kind of a leverage? Do you need to know the rules to be able to break them?
I guess both have their own pros and cons, both the situations. I mean, as an artist, you would always want to be free of any sort of pre-notion ideas of the art,
Yeah.
or you want to be unique. But if you're conditioned in a certain way to study certain art movements, art forms, and other certain artists, inevitably you'll be influenced by it, and you'll end up doing something which is similar, or maybe influenced by the inspirations and your past experiences in an art school. Uh, on the other hand, if you're a self-taught artist, all your skills, on your ideas and your concepts come from a very uh, original, not original, untapered
Yeah.
source, unkindled in a way, maybe.
It doesn't have
It
biases
doesn't have
and of what is
biases.
good, what is
Or
successful, what
correct.
isn't.
Like, no idea about anything, but you already have honed your skills and you're already making certain art forms which is very expressive, and you are already being able to say what you want to say through the skills that you have learned by yourself. I think that's a very beautiful way, because it doesn't matter if you end up looking like some other artist's work or something. It's anyways will gonna happen.
It's going to happen, as you explained.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me, should I go to fashion school? And my answer to that is, if you can afford to, if you have the luxury to spend so many years studying,
Yeah.
and B, if you can definitely study abroad, then for the exposure of it, you
Correct.
must go.
Correct.
And I personally feel like no education is wasted.
No.
Like
Yeah. No.
100%.
100%.
Because as you said, like your engineering kind of, you can see it in your work. And I can see so much of like mass media that I studied, journalism and marketing that I learned in my 3 years. It has helped me do so much more with my brand versus if I had just studied fashion. I would have been limited to just knowing how to make great clothes, not knowing how to market, not knowing how to story tell or write about my work. Um, Yet at the same time, I feel like the technical skills always help you as long as you don't allow them to limit you.
Correct.
Like breaking those rules are important. I think one of the most important things that I learned when I was studying in London, the really short course I did, was they never ever allowed us to reference other designers. None of our sketchbooks, none of our portfolios, presentations, mood boards could have any other designer or a
Yes.
dress.
Yes.
But now, if you see all the portfolios I get of kids who are studying in India, everybody's reference and mood boards have clear pictures of this outfit from Dior, this from this. So, because what I learned was that if that is your inspiration, you're not going to go too far
Oh,
with
yeah.
that, right?
Correct.
So, that is my issue with design schools in India, that you're not really pushing people to, as you said, like boundaryless kind of exploration of me and my idea of where an outfit can come from. Do you feel art is being taught well, which is subjective, but do you feel like students who are studying in India are getting the right kind of an exposure to what it really means to explore yourselves when you're a student of art?
It's a very difficult question for me to answer because I've not been in art school. So I don't know what goes on, what the kind of things that you're subjected to. But I feel like, irrespective if you of the fact that you go to art school or not, if you uh, have worked hard enough to hone your skills and you have that comfort with the medium and you're able to express however you want to express, the rest can follow. Like our school teaches you the vocabulary, the technical side of it, how to talk art basically, right? And it also gives you a lot of other options, exposure to other artists, like to a studio early on. So that is very helpful. A lot of artists can use all of this for their advantage, and their careers can be something else completely.
And I'm going to ask you the most important questions that all artists are getting asked, like, what is your take on AI? Is it going to replace you?
No.
Is there going to be a robot sitting there next time on my hot seat and
I would like that
not a
actually.
human being?
I would like that actually. I'm someone who is a firm believer of like dystopia and utopian like scenarios. Again, extreme versions of things. Past, like future dystopian scenario where AI has taken over. Oh, just sign me up.
Yeah.
But I think that's not the condition because AI is also trained on things that we create and we do, right? And art has always been plagiarized. It's just that with the coming of AI, it has become much more easy and
Through
accessible for
different
everyone
tools, yeah,
to
and
do it better and
at
more
the
efficiently
speed,
at the
yeah.
speed that they are doing. I'm not that threatened because I like AI, I like tech, and I've been using AI in a bunch of my projects to
Oh,
create
wow, okay.
like mood boards, referencing, all of those. It becomes so much faster. I don't have to sit down and make mood boards. I don't have to like sit down and draw references and go scour through Pinterest to find out like pictures and create mood boards and stuff. I can just go type what I have in my mind
Right.
and get an idea out of it. And also, it's very, very early to actually sort of create something very specific with AI. Like if I'm working on a branding project, if I'm working on with a brand and there's a specific guideline and brief that I have to follow, I can't do that, apply it to a mid-journey or stable diffusion and see I want this is packaging this way, 5 centimeter here, 10 centimeter there, color should be like this logo, this text. You can't do any of that. All you can do is compose. Then it's a hybrid model. You use certain parts of AI and then you use the skills that you have learned, combine it together to make you more efficient. Like efficiencies that you're looking for, so that I can create more, I can make more, I can take more projects, can make more money. Straight, simple. It's technology. If you're not using technology to voice better, be more efficient, then it's a very archaic way to look at things and survival basically. So that's why I'm like a for AI guy, not like against it. Even though that AI learning thing, the whole open AI and how they've started like learning on other artists' work, plagiarism and all that stuff, it's happening. That's kind of not so cool because it's just taking things from internet. And right now with Facebook's whole new idea of like taking everything from Instagram and all,
Images and
images and
your personal pictures and
yeah,
stuff.
people have sort of artists have voicing against it. They've stopped using Instagram. They've shifted to other apps. I forgot Kuto or something was there. I forgot the app, but I am okay with both. And I, because I'm not a singular digital artist, I also like do analog a lot. So in a world of AIs, I'll be the one who'll still be making paintings.
Yeah.
And I'll still be a standout person. I'll still be a niche at this because okay, anyone can have an AI piece, anyone can go make a printout or do this. But can you make an original piece? Can
Yeah.
you paint something like this?
Yeah. In my last podcast with Vishal Punjabi, he's the wedding filmer.
Huh.
He said AI will only replace you if you are not good at your job. Like
Yes.
if you are really good at it, if you're a
Yeah.
good painter, you don't have to worry
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. A
Yeah.
lot of, I mean, technology has replaced it because that's the whole idea about survival. It's gonna come in, go out. Weirdly, we thought that AI would come and it'll take away the other jobs. But the first thing to go, like first people to be threatened by were artists and creatives. Because it has always been the other way around. When industrial revolution happened, when the like the whole conveyor belt and all that. I forgot. Like that came into existence. A lot of people lost their job, which
Yeah.
were industries which are very basic, like basic in the sense like which cater to basic needs of humanity, like food production, farming, production of vehicles and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And when automation came in, a lot of people lost jobs there. And now this is similar to that. But now we are not losing out on the core of existence. We're losing out on the luxury of existence.
Right.
That's art, right? So it says a lot about the
The time
situation,
with.
time we're in.
How important is it to build a personal brand today?
It is very important to build a personal brand. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go about it. If you are well equipped to if you're smart enough to work around bunch of other verticals, you know how to promote yourself, you know how to promote your vision and your art. I think following a brand strategy is very important because we live in a very capitalistic world, and it is we can learn from it, we can apply it to our personal growth to a point where we can actually see ourselves change, and we can be part of the process while not being part of the process, if you know what I mean. Like you can
Yeah.
be capitalistic in the approach of how you present yourself, how your brand should look like, but you can talk about which is a very things which are non-capitalistic in its approach, non-conforming, and basically that's how I do it.
But then does that put pressure on you to kind of get so many brand deals to see you through like a quarter or like how do
It
you plan
does.
that?
It does. It does. That's why you have agencies. That's why you have managers. That's why you have that's why you need to network. That's why you need to go out. I've been in so many places. Like I've traveled so much. I've spent so much time just to meet people. You need to put in the physical effort.
Networking is important.
Important. You need to put in the physical effort. You can't
And
just
networking in which circles?
any circle, doesn't matter, just be there. If you like being at a certain place and if you like meeting people, take advantage of it. Go meet people, talk about your art, talk about what you do. It doesn't have to be, that doesn't have to have an outcome.
And the introverts can put it on social media.
Social media, they can put it out there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if I can do both, then it's fine, it's good, win-win.
So the tagline for hashtag preach is once upon a disruption. And every industry, every few months or every few years needs a disruption. What kind of a disruption you think your industry needs?
Stop being obsessed with the idea of being cool. I mean, yeah, okay, I stand out. I'm cool, bro. You're not cool. You're not cool enough. You have to listen a certain way. You have to be a certain way. You have to like certain things, to be in a certain bubble and be like, oh, we're cool enough. Like, we're going to disregard everything else.
When do you feel most comfortable in your skin?
I would say a very physical, I'll give a very physical example. I'm most comfortable in my skin when I'm in my boxes in my studio, lying down on the floor and just questioning myself of, okay, what am I going to do next? What's the artwork's going to be like? Where I'm feeling things, like I'm really, really feeling things. Just a moment before uh, I actually start making something, start painting or making a large drawing or making a large painting, just moment before that, that's when my comfort starts, and throughout the entire process, because I'm jumping around and I'm very explosive in my physical approach to things. Like I'll be jumping around, I'll be doing random motions, and sometimes I'll just break into a little dance, like, and that's comfort for me, because I'm having fun. For me, comfort is fun. Comfort, being in my own skin, is being who I am and being like having fun with it, playing with it. That playfulness makes me comfortable.
Now, moving to the rapid fire. An artist or brand you would love to collaborate with?
I think I would really like to work with Nike one day.
Okay, super, got the answer. 3 manga books that everyone should read.
3 manga books that everyone should read. I think first one would be Berserk. Second one would be this one, Vinland Saga. And third would be, for some weird reason, Naruto.
Got it. I don't know of any, but I shall try. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Any mountaintop would do for me.
One artist that you look up to.
I really look up to Takeshi Murakami.
Your favorite collaboration till date.
Till date, I would go with the recent one I did with Comet, because it was a childhood dream for me to have my own pair of sneakers. So finally, I mass produced Instead of just customizing, I mass produced like around 300 odd pairs, and it was what's really special that it got all sold out in like 30 minutes.
Wow,
And I
you're
was
one
like,
of those sold out.
yes, I was like, okay, this is fine sneakers, looking cool and all that, but hope I get the sold
Yeah,
out
yeah, that
tag.
is so good. That
Yeah,
feels so good. Okay. Collaborating with a music artist or a sneaker brand,
music artists, both,
if you
both.
had to pick.
Okay, if it's Slipknot, then music artist. If it's Nike or weirdly Rick Owens, I'd go with sneakers.
Okay, wow. I love this specificity. Okay. If you weren't an artist, what would you be?
Probably be a surgeon or a physicist.
Okay. Name three of your favorite musicians.
The Meena James Keenan is there. Then I love Deftones as a band. I've been always been a big Deftones fan, and of course I also like this drummer Thomas Hake from Meshuggah, because he's an example of pure physical labor and hard work put into form of sonic music.
Oh, wow. Okay. One movie that every creator should watch.
One movie, I think, uh, stamps. Exit through a gift shop.
Exit through a gift shop.
Actually, through the gift shop. Oh, I forgot, but that's a good movie. It's a documentary on Mr. Brainwash and Bansky.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll watch that.
It's really, it's something very interesting because it just teaches you the futility or the relevance of art in the most simple and straightforward way.
Okay. Your most prized sneakers.
Most prized sneakers. That's a hard one. My comets that I made. Yes.
They all sold out now.
Yeah.
So this is not an ad. This is just pure love.
This is pure love.
Okay. What is one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self?
Be patient.
Be patient.
Yeah, be patient.
Thank you so much. That was not a bad rapid fire at all.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah. And it gave me quite a few things to go and watch and read and stuff like that. So that's thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Hashtag Preach and for staying right until the end. If you enjoyed and learned from this conversation as much as I did, please leave a review, like, share, or subscribe, and be sure to tune in to our next.